Hello, amateurs, and welcome to another episode of Hot Topics. And I've got Chris Swann with me today. How are you doing, Chris?
Yes, mate. All good, thank you. Good to be back.
Excellent. And we are going to be talking about sevens, as it is that time of year here in the UK. So I know you've been involved with sevens teams very deeply, Chris. So tell me, how big is sevens now? How many tournaments are there? You know, how important is it to people?
I think sevens is always going to grow. So when I first started, we had a sevens team called the Bears way back in 2012, and you could pretty much go to anywhere in the country, and there'll probably be a sevens tournament of some sort within the nearest 5 rugby clubs. So, and I think it'll always go like that. I think there's definitely been a point where it's then saturated, and so then you wouldn't get the quality of in some tournaments, and then because of that, they start to drop off, or there'll be some very good tournaments like a Bournemouth or Summer Social, or even some of the legs of the series. And if they clash on the same day, it kind of kills other tournaments. So if you take Bournemouth as an example, fantastic event, you have so many clubs who come in or teams who come in and want to play it. But because it spans across the very, social of the social to very good level, it kind of wipes out. If someone wants to run like an open level tournament, there's no point really, because you're not going to get the caliber of teams. If you don't get the caliber of teams, it's very hard to then resell it the next year. And so there's a couple of tournaments you kind of see on that decline, whereas there's some tournaments there who, like, I think Froome I quite like. Froome's a good tournament where they've managed to stick to what they want to do, and it's just kept going nicely. So
yeah, okay, so interesting. Yeah, so talk to me about like the kind of the attitude of the players after coming out of a long 15 season. What's their kind of energy levels like? What kind of how do they go about it?
Oh, mate, so it's quite interesting, because if you come out of a really attritional season, like say you're in one of these clubs which takes it quite seriously and it's quite physically taxing, mentally taxing, you probably don't see as many of those lads jump straight into sevens because they are genuinely exhausted. And I remember trying to recruit some of them myself over the years, and even though they're really good and you see the value in sevens and you love it, you just couldn't get that across to these guys because they were, to be honest, they were fucked. Like, and that's fair. But then at the same time, if you're not one of those players, it's a really good opportunity, one, to showcase yourself, one, to have a really good laugh with your mates. And to be honest, I think a lot of it is just having a beer. Like, you get all the fun stash elements with it. You have all your mates together more often than not in the sun, and you have a bit of a festival atmosphere. So it's just great. And like, sevens is great for, to be honest, lads of all ability and lads of all shapes and sizes, because there's going to be a tournament and a catchment for everyone. I remember in one of our tournaments we played, there was a team which was made up of probably 7 front rows, and we only just beat them because all they wanted to do was drive them all. And you're like, for fuck's sake, like, could you just like? And we had this little lad, Effin, who must have been, 5 foot on a good day, mixed with like some Gimli lookalike, like really good player. And I think he just basically got fed up, ran around the back of his driving more and just shoved his shoulder in. He's like, I've had enough. I can't deal with it. But
yeah, I've played in a sevens team that was all front rowers, and we had similar tactics, funnily enough. Now, you mentioned that you're doing invitational teams, but club teams take part as well. What's the kind of ratio? Is it mostly invitational or mostly club, or like 50-50?
I think some tournaments are geared up towards more clubs. So you might have Middlesex Sevens, where you'll see more, like Chiswick's or HSC, Hammersmith, like the local clubs. But then I think when you start to see more remuneration involved, or when you start to see the standard is going to be a bit better, you'll then see more actual sevens teams as well, clubs entering those. That's my assumption of it anyway.
So. Yeah. Okay. And you've mentioned in the previous question there about it being a lot about having a beer afterwards. Now, obviously, most of the teams want to compete and want to do well. Where does that balance point come between sort of performance and the social side of a sevens tournament?
So it's really hard to talk about it because every sevens team and their cultures are so different. As an example for ourselves, we we thrived when we weren't taking it seriously. So we got through to semi-finals in the Bournemouth National Cup like a few times. And on those finals days, I would be really stressed out, running around, having a nervous breakdown, like wherever players are, like taking it really seriously in my head. And I just couldn't get it. You know, I was overthinking the whole thing and having just meltdowns left, right and centre. Like, where are they? You go into the car park at 8 o'clock in the morning and the two main fly halves, one, like everyone seemed to be butt naked. One was, I don't know what he was doing in this guy's mouth, but he was doing something. And I was like, for Christ's sake, like there's a game in 2 hours' time. These guys are absolutely battered. But then they went and won it. So you then have other teams who take it really seriously. Like, oh, we have to have an S&C coach. We have to have a physio. We have to have this. All players have to have all their stash. And I think if you go in there with that mindset, if all of your players are not on that mindset, you're not going to perform. Whereas the guys we had in our squad wanted to have a laugh and wanted to have fun. In the tournaments where we tried to be more restrictive, we really fucked up because the players wouldn't perform because it's out of their comfort zone. Where actually, you know, we had a lad Jamar who just wanted to have a cigarette, you know, before a game, and you think, actually, go nuts, go do your thing. And then as soon as he goes on the pitch, you tear it up. And so I think the performance really, I think it ties into the whole event, the whole day. Like, it's not just, you can't just switch it on. You want to say, okay, 20 minutes before, we'll go through our preparation and warm up and stuff, which is absolutely key. But I guess it's the mindset going into that warm up, if that makes sense. So, yes, we want to have a strict warm up, but can we have a laugh while we're doing it? Yeah, probably. We used to play, like throw like a little basketball around and play a little rugby netball and all that type of stuff. Whereas you'd see some teams get the little elastic bands out and all sorts, and you think, oh my good God, we're either going to get dicked here or we're going to...
Yeah, it's going to be embarrassing for them. So really what this all boils down to, I guess, is knowing your players, really.
Yeah, exactly. And then knowing yourself as well. Like, you want to know the direction the team wants to go in. So it comes back to on the last podcast, we spoke about alignment. So that really comes into it here as well, because you've got 14 minutes and you've probably got, in the higher tournaments, when we started the Super Series, you had 3 in a group, top team went through, second team went through to a play, and third team went home in the first year we did it. So actually you could have travelled to Bury St Edmunds, played 2 games, and that would be it. And you think, bloody hell, that's a long way. Yeah, you've got to know the lads. Like, there's no point trying to. It's same in 15s. If you got a bunch of lads who want to treat it professionally, and you come in taking the piss, it's just not going to work, and vice versa. So
yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So you mentioned alignment there. Sorry, you mentioned the previous podcast. We'll link that. It's going to be above your head, Chris. Just point upwards for me.
Good. Yeah.
People there. Yeah, just there. Perfect. Okay. Yeah. So recruitment. How do you build a team in Sevens? How do you build an invitational team? What kind of characters, what kind of people are you looking for?
I think it depends. It depends how quickly you want to turn it around. You see a lot of these teams who pop up for 1, 2, 3 years, and they used to really stress me out because they'd turn up, they'd have all the marketing, they would have all the players looked like they'd been, you know, spewed up by Gymshark, like just all perfect muscles, and you think, oh, for God's sake, like really, like they're going to be running for 14 minutes, drinking protein shakes between games, but they'll be there and gone in that amount of time because either the money dries up, players get bored, snapped up, whatever it is. So I would say for us, we built it on friends of friends initially, and then incrementally added people over the years. And so there was a long evolution. So if you're in it for the long haul, and the lads are in it for the long haul, that's probably the best way to go. You then have to break it down into different areas. So some people really are really interested in the standard of competition. So what level are you competing in? Now, for us, we obviously were not at the top level straight away. So we wanted to bring people in, and it's like, okay, come and have fun. But if you want to play the high levels of tournaments, stay with us, but then also go and do those as well with other teams. So then that way you can keep that loyalty, because you're like, actually, no, go away, but just hopefully you'll come back. And then when we get to that level ourselves, you'll play with us. I then think you then have, I guess, who else is in the squad. That's probably the biggest thing. So if it's a bunch of random people you don't know, unless it's at the top end or it's like a Hong Kong or something, it's very hard to recruit people. So you probably want to have a good culture, find people who fit that environment. And then there was one more thing. So I think, no, actually there's not. I think it really does boil down to that. And probably the kind of kit you have as well. That probably helps.
Let's move on to that right away, because the first proper tournament I ever went to, first proper Sevens tournament, was the Amsterdam Sevens. And it was there I saw the Samurai team for the very first time. And in the shop there, they had a beautiful Samurai shirt. This is a long time ago, so it's still cotton and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And I bought that shirt and I wore it for a solid 15 years, I think, afterwards, because I loved it. So Sevens stash is very close to my heart. Talk to me about the stash that you've seen. What kind of things do you go for?
So I think the best team who's ever done it, I think there's two teams who've done the Sevens stash really well. I think Samurai have done it really well. It also helps if you've got a manufacturer behind you, obviously. But there was one team called St. Paul's Pirates who were based, I think, from what I remember, they were based at lads from the University of Gloucestershire. But these lads were so talented, it was ridiculous. And it took so long for us to actually get to a level where we could beat them. And then it would kind of go tit for tat. But they would rock up with they had club blazers sometimes, so like these pink blazers, and it was like, bloody hell, that's amazing. After the Farnham tournament back in 2015-16, maybe, they had, do you remember those like towel dry robes? Everyone kind of had one of those. I think, fuck, like these guys are just so spot on. Like, how have they're just one step ahead, and there's us going, oh yeah, we'll get a vest and shorts and what have you. So we were kind of basic really, but yeah, those are really good. And I think there's a balance in terms of stylings as well. So I always think the thing what Samurai did really well, and probably Apache, is you have your core brand, and then actually the stash is fairly similar over the course of the years. So whether someone played 4 years ago, I guess it's like if someone drives one of those nice two-seater Porsches, you can kind of see the shape of it over the last 15 years. So you can instantly recognize it, whether it's an old or new one. And I think there's something quite institutional about it. And so for me, that's the stuff I really buy into. I think that's really good. But equally, what else have we seen? Usual budgie smugglers, sliders, all that type of stuff. But yeah, I think I have to say, I think it's St. Paul's Pirates on just a random things like the poncho towel things. Amazing. It was so good.
Yeah. I love a bit of creativity with the stash as well. That's awesome. Now let's talk about like the importance of sevens in terms of rugby generally, in terms of like the development of young players, the confidence it can give them. What have you seen, Chris?
So I think firstly with sevens, you don't need to be playing in the best league to be playing at the best level in sevens. So I think you can break sevens down into jobs. So you could have someone who is you go and catch this high ball, like you're here for kick-off receipt and chase. That's literally it. And, we had players who were at the time doing Surrey 2, London 2, London 3, but also competing against National League type players. These lads outside of that environment would not have competed with players of that ilk and also, gone toe to toe. And so I would say there's a massive confidence play here, because you see coaches who will say, "Oh no, you're not good enough, mate. Like, stay with us," or "You're not good enough to play against him. Bloody hell, he's so good, isn't he? Christ!" And so in your head, you can start to detract from your own ability a little bit and start to believe it. And so I think there is with sevens, there's so much freedom and so much confidence, and it's quite a hostile environment at times, because if you miss a tackle, the chances are, unless you've got a real decent sweeper behind you or a rapido wing to come and make cover, they're probably going to score. And it's not like you can hide. So it's quite nice when you can see those lads actually step up, make the tackles against these bigger lads. Like, it still baffles me today when you see players who've done that 2, that 1, just being chopped down by like a London 1, London 2 player. It's brilliant. And then I think it goes for lads even in, like front rowers and whatnot, because when you see lads rocking around in, playing touch before training, and the stuff they do there, you'll never see them do it in a 15s game. And so if you're playing in like a good, fun, open, social level of sevens, you see these big lads chucking the dummies, the triple misses, whatever it is they're doing. And more often than not, they're coming off. And when they don't come off, it is equally as brilliant because their face is like, well, fuck it, I tried. And it's just... And so I think for that, there's no consequence really. Most of these tournaments, barring the series, are standalone. So it's like, all right, we got knocked out. Cool, we'll go have a drink. No worries about it. So it's not really about any massive ramifications of fucking up. And I think that's important too. It's like no pressure rugby.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, all us front rowers are frustrated fly halves, really. So I can totally understand.
Yeah, you should see my drop kicks. They are unbelievable.
Me too, actually. Okay, mate, we'll bring this towards a close now. But is there anything else you want to sort of add about anything we've sort of spoken about, or anything else at all?
No, I don't think so. I think just like it's one of those. I'd encourage as many people to go and play the game as possible. Yeah, it's knackering, you'd be ball bags and all that type of stuff, but it's a really good equaliser. It's just a nice, fun time with some of your mates. And to be honest, what you're seeing, or what I've personally seen, there's a lot of players now moving away from 15s because that sevens calendar is starting to almost go all year round with these different international tournaments, and it's much cheaper to get abroad. And to be honest, because there's a novelty factor with abroad tournaments, a lot of lads are happy to go, yeah, I'll pay 200, 300 quid to go because when else am I going to be able to get to go there? So I think a lot of lads sometimes move from 15s to sevens just to do that for a year. It's much less taxing on the body physically. You probably have a better body afterwards, and you probably have just as many beers as you would have across the 15 season. So yeah, I just think it's an invaluable game. Like it doesn't get the credit it deserves at times, I don't think.
Awesome. That is a great way to finish. Okay, people listening at home, are you playing sevens? Is your club involved with sevens? If not, what can you do to change that? And what do you think? What's your favourite sevens kit that you've seen on the circuit? Let us know in the comments down below. And while you're down there, give this video a thumbs up if you don't mind, and subscribe if you haven't already. So, Chris, thank you very much for your time today. As always, it's been a pleasure.
Yeah, cheers, Tim. Thank you, mate.